I guess this is my response video to tnoutdoors9. If you can bear the glare off my head here, I couldn't find a good indoor hat to wear while we're sitting here cleaning guns. He posted a good video about how the deck is stacked against us as gun owners, and it certainly does seem that way sometimes. And I've been thinking ever since the Sandy Hook event. I have kids, obviously, we're a shooting family, and it's a difficult thing to think about, but I don't blame the guns for the problem. I think blaming the guns for what has happened is frankly naive. It is not looking into human nature, it's not understanding human nature. And how to address the problem is not by taking rights away from law-abiding citizens and giving more rights to the criminals, which is what's being done. And trying to think back in my own history and experience of how to illustrate it and how to how to explain it. We used to have a small computer shop. We sold things. I remember the first time that we were shoplifted from, and how violated we felt, how angry it made us that someone had stolen a $150 item from us. And that doesn't even begin to compare to the shock when I learned that people who shoplift, just habitual shoplifters, and if you don't believe me, go look at the research on it, don't believe that they're doing anything wrong. That was a shock to me. I don't understand how anybody could think that way. They don't believe when they go into a store and they take something that they're doing anything wrong. They don't believe that it harms anyone. And that is the mentality that is prevailing out there. That's the way people are thinking. They're reasoning away common sense and logic. In the case of guns, we have the Second Amendment. We also have the First Amendment about free speech. And the equivalent thought here, taking the movie theater incident, if we have free speech, then we can say pretty much anything we want to without fear of retaliation by the government. However, free speech has a limit. We can't stand up in a theater and yell fire without consequences. It's been done. You stand up, you yell fire and cause a panic and people get injured. What is the response to that? What does law enforcement do? Well, by the reasoning being used for the Second Amendment, the proper response should be to ban the use of the word fire, to eliminate it from our vocabulary, to get rid of that evil, horrible word that caused that problem in that theater when someone stood up and yelled it. That's what we should do, is eliminate the word. Now, a word's not a tangible object, but a newspaper is. Same thing applies. The First Amendment, we can say what we want to say, but we can't go and publish an article in a newspaper that is an outright lie, make something up about someone, make something up, and I don't mean simple stuff and affairs, things like that. I'm talking about to truly publish something totally erroneous. For example, to publish that a company is going out of business, that their stock is about to collapse, and to cause a run on it and eventually cause problems for the company and possibly even the collapse. There's consequences for that. If we use the reasoning being used for the Second Amendment, the proper response to that situation would be to ban newspapers. Obviously, that would solve the problem. If we just ban newspapers and get rid of them altogether, we won't have these problems anymore. People won't be publishing these articles that cause a problem. Well, of course, applying that to the First Amendment, you can easily see is ludicrous. It's ridiculous. You don't blame the newspaper, you don't blame the word, you blame the people that used them, the people that did it. So when it comes to the Second Amendment, we have someone who went and committed a horrible, horrible act. But even in the moment of grief, if you did blame the gun, if that's how they felt about it, okay. But let's start to get some reason and look at what's going to be effective and what's going to work. Banning the gun is not going to work. It's been proven over and over. It doesn't even make logical sense that starting to come out with strong gun bans is going to do anything to keep the guns out of the hands of criminals. If it did, Chicago would be the safest place on the planet. And it's not. And I come right back to that same issue where I was so shocked when I learned that shoplifters didn't know that what they were doing was wrong, or didn't believe that it was wrong. And I look at someone who honestly believes that the answer to all of our woes is to just get rid of guns altogether. And I just have to marvel at the naivety of that thought process. I don't understand it. I don't even come close to understanding it. Maybe I should work harder at understanding it. But I do know that it is a fundamental right that we're able to defend ourselves. The forefathers knew that. And that's why it's in the Constitution. That's why it's in the Bill of Rights. These are fundamental, undeniable rights that we have. And the arguments about the types of guns and the how many guns, those types of things, you're starting to move off into other arguments and other problems that aren't even related to the issue. I'm not aware of how many guns some of the mass shooters out there had, but from the cases that I have looked at, the things that I have looked at, the majority of these guys were not survivalists. They were not people that were going out there amassing hundreds and hundreds of weapons. As history starts to look into them, we find out they were disturbed individuals that had their own agenda. Even if it was a twisted, self-contained agenda we don't understand, they had their own agenda. And taking one weapon off the table for them does not change the person, does not change their intentions, and will not change their intent to do something. And it just changes the tools that they use. I can honestly think of far, far worse things that could be done than to carry a firearm into someplace and start shooting. And I'm thankful that these horrible things that are also available out there for people aren't being used, and they're not doing it. But to just throw it all on the table, right out in front of you, and say firearms are the total blame for all of this, let's ban them, again, is frankly naive. It is simply not the problem. As tnoutdoors9 said, I believe, we didn't try to ban the planes after they flew into the World Trade Center. After terrorist actions, these terrorists that go out and they put on bomb vests and go blow themselves up, they're going to find a way. And what we have to do as a society is learn to recognize threats, learn to defend ourselves, learn to take care of ourselves, and having and being responsible with a firearm is part of that. How could a father be, so hateful and hate his children and be so disgusting as to expose his children to guns and all that? That's ludicrous. You really don't live in reality if that's what you believe. You know, in thinking about it, I think domestic terrorist is a perfect description for what happened at Sandy Hook. And it should be viewed that way, should be dealt with that way. As for a particular weapon, assault weapon, if I felt that banning those particular weapons would have prevented what happened, I'd be first in line to ban them. But I see Sandy Hook being used as an excuse to further the agenda of those that promote gun control and are of an anti-gun viewpoint. Now, we have friends and family in law enforcement. I've asked 3 police officers, one of them federal, the same question. If we were to ban assault weapons, do you feel that everything would be safer? Do you feel that that wouldn't have happened? Do you feel that you would be safer in your job? 2 of them responded no. One of them laughed so hard I thought he was going to fall out of his chair before he responded no. So the police get it. They understand the reality of it. Criminals are criminals. They're going to break the law. They're going to find a way. So, in honesty, what we're looking at is an attempt to penalize honest, law-abiding citizens and to get the guns out of their hands and to further an agenda for a gun control group.